1986. I voted for the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, and Reagan wrote in his diary he was signing the bill because it was supposed to get control of the border and have an effective employer program that would have real penalties if they hired people illegally. We didn't get either thing. So I would start with those. A couple more, yes, sir. What else?
One, as a graduating senior, I'm trying to make college decisions, and I've had to scratch several top colleges off the list because of personal family finances and not ability to pay expensive college. Is there any way, without the Department of Education research things up, is there a way to
Okay. And your second question?
I just want to know what Louisiana
Well, I can tell you that Callista just now had a bouillabaisse at Galatoire. She was doing well. I had an omelet with crab meat and asparagus. Does that meet your minimums? And I had oysters Rockefeller. Anytime I go to Galatoire, I can't help myself. And then we're hoping to have a little more food later on this evening. So. I'm sure at some point red beans and rice are in our near future. So it was a staple when I was a graduate student here. Not to mention muffalettas. So there are a lot of, and then maybe we might end the evening having a little, little beignet and cafe au lait down at the Cafe du Monde. Although given the crowd I already saw at noon, I'm not sure what it's going to be like on the eve of St. Patrick's down there. But it's always fun. How can you not want to go? Let me mention about college two things for you to think about that may surprise you. One is check out a college called the College of the Ozarks, which is a work-study college. You may be too well off to apply to it because they only allow people to apply who need student aid. But they don't have any student aid. You work 15 hours a week during the school year plus 2 40-hour weeks. That pays tuition and books. You work 40 hours a week in the summer. That pays room and board. 92% of the students graduate owing nothing. 8% graduate owing an average of $5,000 because they bought a car their senior year. Now, it's a very, I'm trying to get every state to create one work-study college for two reasons. One is I want young people to understand if you're willing to work, there's a way to get through school without having a huge debt. So that we make college loans optional, not mandatory, because we've really gotten into almost an addiction, where our students borrow too much money, they then take too long to get through school. I mean, borrowing the money has actually slowed down the rate at which students come through school, because they got all this free money. And they haven't learned until they start to graduate that it's not free. And so it's a real problem. The second reason I'd like every state to adopt a work-study college is they're very inexpensive. And they create a benchmark for the public universities, which have become absurdly expensive. You look at how many clerical positions there are and how many administrative positions there are at modern universities, and ask yourself why. It's because they can do it. They just keep adding more and more cost. And that's not the original purpose of the school. So that's my initial suggestion to you. My other suggestion to you is try to work your way through school, try to go through as fast as you can, and try to borrow as little as possible. And you're going to get into, you're obviously smart, you're going to get into a pretty good school. Which is the last thing I'd say, which is there are a lot of good schools in the United States. I mean, this idea that if you're not in the top 7, you might as well commit suicide or go home and lead the rest of your life as a recluse is just silly. There are lots of people who have gone out, and frankly, my wife doesn't like me to say this, but there are a fair number of people who've done okay without going to college, or with only 2 years of college. Bill Gates would be an example. Steve Jobs would be an example. And I'm not arguing for that. I'm just saying you can create a path in your life if you're disciplined and you're focused that you'll do amazingly well. And I think, I don't know, just help your demeanor and your question, you're going to be just fine. Yes, sir. My viewpoint on the United Nations is that I co-chaired with former Senator George Mitchell a UN Reform Commission several years ago. It is a corrupt institution filled with wasteful bureaucracy and dominated the General Assembly by tiny dictatorships who are anti-American. The goal of the next president should be to assign every American ambassador as one of their top 3 or 4 tasks to get the vote of the country that they're assigned to for dramatic fundamental reform of the United Nations, and to work very hard to create a democratic counterpart that only allowed countries in that were genuine democracies, and to gradually shift U.S. resources away from the UN towards the new democracy organization. Because I think that the UN, to me, has become totally unreliable and increasingly dominated by people who hate us. And so I think we have to take very seriously. And that's one of the reasons I worry about Obama and Clinton and Panetta, because they take the UN seriously. And that's really dangerous because it's an absurd institution. And its current form, the dictators are currently dominated. Any reasonable person would look at that group and say, this is not a group you can take seriously. This is a group you have to be worried about. But let me just say, Chris and I look forward to seeing all of you for a minute afterwards. We are delighted that you're here. We do hope you'll email all your friends, make sure they get out to vote. We need all the help we can get in the primary. I think we have a very, very good chance to do very well in Louisiana, and you could really help us turn things around and send a signal to the National Press Corps. So thank you all very, very much for being here.